Hello, everybody, and welcome to WBGO Studios. My name is Gary Walker. Trumpeter flugelhornist Joe Magnarelli has displayed his fire and hush with the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra, Toshiko Akiyoshi's Jazz Orchestra, Lionel Hampton, Maria Schneider. He co-founded the New York Hard Bop Quintet in the early 90s. He's worked with singers Laverne Butler and Harry Connick Jr. He's toured with Aretha Franklin. He's worked with Leon Russell and so many others. And I have a feeling even Gabriel turns his head when Joe Magnarelli starts to play. He's also an educator at both Juilliard and Temple, which could be one of the reasons why the Temple University Jazz Ensemble just won the top prize at the Jazz at Lincoln Center Collegiate Competition. And he's with us here today to talk about his new recording that comes from the Cellar Live label. It's called Decidedly So. Joe Magnarelli, welcome to WBGO Studios, man. It's good to see you again.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. This recording was captured at the legendary Rudy Van Gelder Studios, and kind of like they used to do in the old days. Sinatra used to do it, Cannonball Adderley used to do it. You actually had a live audience with you for the date.
Yeah, we had an old-fashioned jazz party in the studio, which was a lot of fun. Everybody, they're all from Canada, mostly Vancouver, and just the nicest people, and they were really into it. So it made a good vibe in the studio. We did half the record with the live audience, and we did the other half regular. Yeah.
This was not your first time at Rudy Van Gelder's, I
No,
suspect.
I actually did 3 dates with Rudy back in the day, which were frightening sometimes, but also just I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to work with him. No, he was the greatest, but I mean, it was a little, it's,
Rudy was Rudy.
yeah, Rudy was Rudy, and he was the master and the maestro of all time. So it's all good. I'm so happy I got to interact with him a few times.
I still remember, I think it was 1994 when your recording on Crisscross came in. Renee Rosnes, Eric Alexander, the Washingtons, Kenny and Peter were there with you. It
Wow,
was called Why Not? And I
wow.
thought, ooh, man. And
Yeah.
here we are many years later, and we're celebrating this brand new recording, Decidedly So. Talk about the lineup here that joined you for this recording. Steve Davis on trombone. The two of you are just give and take throughout this entire recording.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're really just longtime associates. I've known Steve for, I don't know, th over 30 years, and we played on and off. Lately, we've been in Europe a bunch of times together the last 5 years, so we became really a little closer. And Rodney Green is just one of the greatest drummers, I've ever played with, and I was he's always one of my first people that I think about. Clovis Nicholas is a good friend and a great musician, great bass player, and we've been playing together for years. And Jeremy is another special cat that I've always we haven't played together that much, but I've always, loved his playing and loved his personality. So I thought to go into Rudy's that day, that would be a good, situation for the music that I wrote.
Jeremy's last name, Manasseh or Manasseh?
Manasseh
Manasseh.
from
Okay.
Staten Island.
Yeah, there you go. Wow. And for you, it started outside of Syracuse, New York.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in Syracuse, New York. I moved here. Well, I went on the road in 1985 and I got here in 1986.
And who'd
Yeah.
you go on the road with? I'm going to say
I was
Lionel
out
Hampton.
I was out with the Broadway show Eight Misbehavin', and we did 27 weeks, and then I went back to Syracuse for about a week and a half or maybe little longer, and then the conductor called me to come down to New York to do it at the Darien Dinner Theater. So I did another 10 weeks there, and that was I never went home. That was it. I just stayed in New York, of course. I
And you
wanted to
have
come here anyways.
and you have never looked back. And here on this new recording, Decidedly So, it opens up with a track that when I first saw it, I thought, wow, it's a salute to DJs. I like that. No, no, Gary. But it is a salute to the world famous Dennis Johnson, one of the Celtics in Boston. A real inspiration for you, and why?
Well, it's not such a deep thing. It's just I'm a big basketball fan, and I was definitely a Celtic fan back in the day. Dennis Johnson, Larry Bird. But anyways, as I was writing this song, I always put like a little, I don't really give it the name yet. You know what I mean? I just put like a little note to know, so I wrote this one, and usually it's connected with basketball. Like I'll put somebody's number, like, Willis Reed's number, or, somebody's number, and I'll say, okay, that tune, I'm going to try to write that tune, finish that tune, and the title gives me a reference. So when I brought the tune to the rehearsal, which was about 3 weeks before the date, I still had DJ on it. And Steve is also a Celtic fan, so he was so excited that I named the tune after Dennis Johnson. I'm like, okay, let's go. That's great, man. I'm cool with it. I
And
love Dennis
he's
Johnson.
also a sports guy, because he
Oh
is
yeah, he loves the
referenced.
Celtics. Yeah, he loves the
He's
Celtics.
got that one tune on one of his records called 24,
Uh-huh.
and it's all the famous athletes who wore the number 24, I believe.
Ah, fantastic. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it jumps out, man, and it's just a barn burner. But there's also some fabulous standards on this recording. This nearly was mine shows off your abilities on the flugelhorn.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm a flugelhorn player too. I love the flugelhorn. My first influences, early influences, well, my first teacher was strictly a flugelhorn player, but he made it sound like a trumpet, and he was really a great player and a great musician. And so I always play the flugelhorn too,
Yeah,
a little bit, a little bit, a couple
yeah.
tunes here and there, yeah.
But you prefer the trumpet.
Yeah, well, I prefer having two voices. When the trumpet gets a little stale to me, I'll pick up the flugelhorn and it's another voice.
Speaking
And
of
the same,
voices,
go
speaking
ahead.
of voices, who were some of the trumpet voices that inspired you early on?
Well, uh, early on, my first really two guys were Clifford Brown, then Fats Navarro. And I would say Fats, really, I got into Fats heavily when I was young. And then when I heard Kenny Dorham, I had the blinders on for a few years, and it was just Kenny Dorham and Blue Mitchell for a few years. And then, of course, I heard Freddie Hubbard play live many times, and I have all his records. I heard Woody Shaw play a lot. Brian Lynch, John Marshall, Tommy Turrentine, actually Roy Hargrove. Man, I learned a lot from Roy Hargrove, just hanging out with him and down in the Smalls and other places. So I've taken a lot from a lot of different players, and I've also not taken some stuff from other players that I don't like. It's just, that's the way it is. You just take what you can, and you also other stuff you're like, no, I don't want that. So yeah.
Those first 12 seconds changed the world of music.
Which,
And it was the trumpet of Louis Armstrong
oh yeah, of
on
course,
West End Blues.
I agree.
Yeah. Do you play that riff?
I actually do, man. I actually love Louis Armstrong, and I only really try to emulate him in the 20s. I feel like his 20s playing was really the root of bebop. So yeah, I mean, I practice that solo. I practice a bunch of solos. Yeah, I'm into Louis Armstrong. I love him. I would say now he's the best of all time. That, in my
Well,
opinion.
and he was
Yeah.
one of the first hip hop artists.
Oh, for sure.
If you ever listen to Heebie-Jeebies,
That's right. That's right. That's
that
right.
was Louis Armstrong, and that was
That's
many,
right.
many, many, many decades ago. You referenced Blue Mitchell, and Blue Mitchell was an
Hmm.
inspiration for you, specifically 1960 and Blue Moods,
Oh yeah, man.
from which you pulled "When I Fall in Love," one of the gorgeous ballads on this recording.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I listened to that record. That's how, I wasn't a music school kid. I was kind of like, I was mostly like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But when I heard that record and I heard a couple Kenny Dorham records, I knew, I was like 21, 22. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah. Yeah.
And never look back, man.
No, not
Never
yet.
look back. And it's a gorgeous read on When I Fall in Love. And it's interesting because you and Steve Davis, hand it back and forth, just like
Yeah.
DJ might have done on the court.
Yeah, right.
It's just gorgeous. We're chatting with Joe Magnarelli, and Mags has a new record out. It's called Decidedly So. The title track was actually written by Steve Davis.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And Corey, and once we did the music, Corey kind of programmed everything. and he felt that that was and I do too. It's a very strong tune to start the CD with, so that's what we went with, and that was great, man. I mean, Steve always writes really good tunes. We did two other records together under my name, and he brought a tune both times, and they were probably the best tunes on the record, So it's always, he's such a great musician and great, just the way he thinks about music and his concept. I can totally get with that. I feel very comfortable with his work.
Well, this recording has, as I mentioned, it's got the fire and it's also got the hush. And on that latter note, a salute to Akiko Sturuga, your late wife, who
Yeah,
unfortunately passed in September.
yeah,
And you wrote this tune called 10th Anniversary.
yeah.
And she was still alive, obviously, when you wrote the tune. But it's just
Well,
a
I
gorgeous
wrote it before
tribute.
she was. I wrote it before she was sick. Actually, every year I wrote a tune for our anniversary. Well, almost every year. And so this was actually before we even knew what was going on. So it's even
She
I don't
was
know
a
what to say.
wonderful lady, man, and just a sparkler at the Hammond B3. And
Yeah,
also, was a student of the B3. I had a
yeah,
conversation with Lou Donaldson one day, and he said, "Man, if you want to know about the B3, you got to go talk to Akiko because she's got the deal."
it's true, man. It's true. All the club owners with organs in the club loved her because she'd go in there and fix the organ. Take the front out, be in there. You see this little girl in there with the screw, and she put the thing back, and we're like, "Oh man, beautiful." So she was pretty incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Gorgeous,
yeah.
gorgeous, gorgeous salute, man. 10th
Thank you.
anniversary is one of the tracks on this new recording, decidedly so. The recording ends with a salute to your brother.
Yeah,
Talk about him. His name is
Jimmy,
Jimmy,
Jimmy Maggs. Yeah,
and
yeah,
it ends with Jimmy's Blues. Is he a
yeah.
musician?
No, he was a basketball referee, college basketball referee, and he likes music though. He likes the theater. He likes a lot of Broadway music and stuff, and but he's not really into jazz. But he in my I like to write tunes for my family, and he's always complaining I never wrote him a tune. So I'm like, here you go, bro.
I hope he enjoys it. I know I do. Decidedly so is the new recording with Joe Magnarelli, who we're chatting with today. And I mentioned in the opening that he's also an educator, and that's one of the luxuries that these young players have from today is they have masterful people that came before them that can pass along things. You do that at both Temple and Juilliard. What are some of the markers that you might pass along to young students of this music?
Well, just to be clear, I'm not at either school anymore because I've been on the road too much the last few years, so I had to cut loose those jobs.
Oh,
Just because of it's just too much going on. But when I was there, I would say that more than anything, it's about just setting an example. Like because young people today, like I would say, between let's say between 20 and 25, 27, they kind of know if they're musicians, they know what they want. They know they have an idea of what they want. So really all you do is just try to guide them and give them the information. And when I talk about information, I mean like steer them to certain records. Like, trumpet players, I always steered them. The first thing I steered them towards Louis Armstrong in the 20s. I thought that, it's very important. And then after that, maybe, also steer them to Charlie Parker. And because I'm a firm believer that this music, like Sonny Rollins says, the rhythm is the melody, and the what makes jazz so special, the jazz we love is the rhythm. Art Blakey, Art Taylor, Philly Joe, Cozy Cole, all these cats that define the music. Jimmy Cobb, Louis Hayes,
and
Victor
you had a
Lewis.
chance to play with a lot of them
I
too.
got a chance to have a cup of coffee with a lot of those guys, yeah, and um, so I felt like if I turned them on to Lewis or Charlie Parker, that's a rhythm. If they really get into the music and try to emulate it, it's a certain rhythm that's it defines the music. So they get an insight into the rhythm of the music. And that I thought that was important. I still teach in my house. I have kids. I'm still involved with the Tribeca Jazz Institute down by the Roxy Hotel, and that's Grant Stewart's creation. and it's a very good school. And so I'm involved there. Some of the kids come to study with me and stuff. So I'm still doing some teaching. Yeah.
You know what else I like about you? You're like
Yes.
me. You're a cat owner.
Oh, I love my cats.
Yeah, I mean, if you look behind Joe, you can see the cats on the wall,
Oh
man.
yeah.
My cat Baloo. My cat's name is Baloo.
Oh, it's great,
She's
man.
running around here somewhere. She's
It's
5 years old,
beautiful.
man. I just love her dearly, man.
That's beautiful.
So when you're not on the road and you're not playing your trumpet or your flugelhorn, what are some of the things you like to do, man?
Um, well, it's hard to say now because my life is in a little bit of a transition. I don't really know what I do because I used to do everything with my wife. But I'm trying to, get it together and luckily I've been pretty busy and I'm about to go out for 7 weeks. And also this whole year I've got a whole bunch of tours. So, I'll get my thoughts together out there a little bit.
Now, the audience, do we have an opportunity to see you performing some of this music live in the area?
I hope so. Right now, because of this year is so busy on the road, I'm gonna try to book something at Lincoln Center, maybe if they'll have me. I just did something there for Kiko last 2 weeks ago. We did a night for her at the Unity Festival, so it'll be a while before I could probably get a gig back in there again. But I hopefully go into Dizzy. That's my favorite club. The whole Lincoln Center is Jazz at Lincoln Center is such a beautiful thing. Hats off to Wynton Marsalis for doing that. It's really beautiful, man. And but hopefully I can do that and yeah, hopefully some gigs around town. I'm not a
Yeah.
big go-getter businessman, but there'll be some stuff, yeah.
Well, there's some stuff right here to enjoy in the meantime. Decidedly so. Trumpeter, flugelhornist Joe Magnarelli, along with Steve Davis on trombone, Jerry Manassias piano, Clovis Nicholas on bass, and drummer Rodney Green, captured in front of a live audience at Rudy Van Gelder's studio in Englewood Cliffs. Pretty magical place, Rudy Van Gelder's. I did
Totally.
Bob Porter was a good friend of mine, and I wanted to go to Van Gelder's, and he took me up there one time for a Jimmy McGriff date.
Oh, wow,
And
heavy.
oh, I'm telling you, man. And I ended up on the record. They did a version of the Fats Domino tune, I'm Walking, right? So
Yeah.
they get done with the tune, and Porter looks at Jimmy, and Rudy's sitting there too. He said, "What do you think?" And Jimmy says, I just had it felt like more of a church to me. That's what I had in my head. So,
Yeah.
so Rudy comes out and gets everybody in the room, myself included, and lines us up at the horn mics. He said, "Now we're going to play this back again. And when we get to a point, you all have a sense of rhythm, right? When we get to this point, we're going to point to you, and we want you to start clapping. Dun, 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 right? I mean, that was the tempo of his treatment, his arrangement.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I ended up on the record. I got
It's
absolutely no
fantastic.
credit, but it was a spectacular day at
Fantastic.
Rudy Van Gelder's. And I know there were about 35 people in the house with you that day when you captured Decidedly So. And I
Yeah.
know they went back to Canada and they're still talking about it.
Can I just say one thing before I'd like to just say thank you to as long as we're talking about Rudy's to Maureen Sickler, who's the engineer there. She's got everything in control. She's a master, and her personality is so right on for a recording. So and of course Don too. They're keeping the place at a high level. So that's really beautiful to see.
Well, and if it weren't for the two of them,
That'd be right.
Rudy
Yeah.
Van Gelder's might have gone away.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's
That's
still
true.
alive and well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
as you can tell, decidedly so, making great music. And one of those recordings is the new one from Joe Magnarelli. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us. I appreciate it. Give a hug to the cats. What are the cats' names?
Hiroko and Stella.
Uh-huh. Stella.
Exactly.
Stella's got a ripped t-shirt on, right? No, that's a Marlon Brando reference of sorts. Anyway, Joe, thank you very much, man. I enjoyed the
Thank you, Gary.
conversation,
You're
and
the
I look
best.
forward to sharing this recording with our listeners on WBGO.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.